In 829 AD, a king named Egbert received the submission of nearly every major kingdom in Britain: Mercia, Northumbria, East Anglia, and even several Welsh kingdoms. It was arguably the closest anyone had gotten to ruling all of England since the Romans. Most people have never heard of him, but he's one of the most influential characters in all of English history. Egbert was born around 769 AD, the son of Alhumad, a minor king of Kent. He had legitimate royal blood, but was more of a liability than an asset in late 8th century England. The dominant power at this time was Mercia, ruled by King Offa, the same Offa who built the famous earthwork boundary between England and Wales. Offa had spent several decades consolidating influence over the smaller southern kingdoms, and he viewed Egbert as a potential rival. So, around 789 AD, Egbert was forced into exile under Offa's influence. He made his way to the court of Charlemagne in Francia, where he spent roughly 3 years. It wasn't a waste of time. The Frankish court was the most sophisticated political environment in Western Europe at the time, and Egbert got a close look at how a large, complex realm was actually run. When he returned to England, he came back with a broader perspective and more influence than nearly any other Anglo-Saxon ruler of the time. In 802, the king of Wessex died and Egbert soon took the throne. Wessex at this time was a mid-tier kingdom, significant but not dominant. It faced pressures from Mercia to the north and ongoing conflict with Celtic kingdoms of the southwest, particularly Cornwall, proved a problem. Egbert spent his early reigns dealing with that western frontier. Between roughly 815 and 825, he ran a series of campaigns into Cornwall, gradually bringing it under West-Saxon control. The Battle of Galford in 825 was a decisive moment. After that, the Cornish resistance was effectively broken. It was methodical, unglamorous work, but secured his western flank and gave him a stable base for what would come next. Also in 825, Mercia under King Beowulf moved against Wessex. The two armies met at a place called Aelendum, somewhere in Wiltshire. Egbert won decisively, and Beowulf was defeated and he retreated. The political consequences were significant. The kingdoms of Kent, Surrey, Sussex, and Essex, which had once been under Mercian control, switched their allegiances to Egbert almost immediately. East Anglia, which had its own grievances with Mercia, sought Egbert's protection, and shortly afterward killed Beowulf, the former king of Mercia, when he tried to reassert control in East Anglia. In a fairly short span of time, Egbert had gone from king of one kingdom to the leading power in southern England, not through a grand strategic vision necessarily, but through one well-timed victory and its knock-on effects. By 829, Egbert pushed further. He invaded Mercia directly. The Mercian king Wiglaf withdrew rather than fight, and Mercia soon submitted. Northumbria, seeing the situation, sent representatives and acknowledged Egbert's overlordship without a battle. The Anglo-Saxon chronicles referred to him as the Eighth Bretwalda, a term for a king who held some form of authority over the other English kingdoms. It's a contested title, and some historians debate exactly what it meant in practice, but it reflects how contemporary sources understood his position. For a year or two, Egbert held a degree of authority over England, and was genuinely unusual for that period of strife and chaos. However, it didn't last long. Within a year or two, Wiglaf returned and reclaimed Mercia. Egbert didn't have the administrative machine like Charlemagne to hold such a wide domain together, and the chronicle records him having lost Mercia. It simply slipped away. Then, in 835, a Danish fleet raided the Isle of Sheppey. The following year, a force of Vikings with their Cornish allies invaded the southwest. Egbert defeated them at Hingston Down in 836, but their raids were a sign of what was coming, a sustained Viking pressure that would reshape England over the following decades. Egbert died of old age in 839 after 37 years on the throne of Wessex, accomplishing much. Egbert never really unified England in any lasting sense. His pan-English dominions was a brief and fairly shallow entity. What he did do was establish Wessex as the strongest kingdom in England and leave it in good enough shape that his successors could build on it. His grandson was the famous Alfred the Great. His great-great-grandson was Aethelstan, who would become the first king generally recognized of England. Egbert didn't finish the job, but he set the conditions that made it possible, which in the long run was greatly influential. Thanks for watching, and please subscribe.